Every day, all around us, assessment is occurring. It can be formal assessment, like a job interview, or informal assessment, like a store assistant trying to work out what you want to buy. It doesn't matter what the assessment is, because the structure is always the same. Just look around here. How many people are making decisions, making assessments? What to buy, how to buy, where to buy, who to buy off. Assessment is just a decision-making process. To make any decision, you will require a set of requirements you want your decision to meet. And then to make your decision, you need information to help you decide. Replace requirements with criteria and information with evidence, and you have assessment. For it to be a training assessment, we need to have some form of standard or criteria we are assessing against, and then we need to match this against a set of evidence that we collect. When the evidence we have is equal to the criteria we are using, we can then say we have achieved a match. In training, when that match occurs, we say the person is competent. In a job interview, when the match occurs, we have our new employee. Of course, designing effective assessment is not that simple. Generally, the criteria is easy to find. In Australia, we are fortunate that we have national training standards, competencies, for just about every job, related task and process, and hence the criteria is easily located. The difficult part of the assessment is the evidence. This is where an assessment tool comes in. We need to design a whole evidence gathering process that will collect the required amount of evidence to ensure that a person is competent. In other words, the match. How would you assess if I was a competent pool player? The first step would be to define the criteria. What is a competent pool player? To be honest, I don't know, since I'm not actually competent. But I'm sure, given some time, you could come up with a set of quality criteria. The second step. How would I gather evidence to determine if I could meet your criteria? The match. Well, the most obvious would be to watch me play a few games. Play a series of set shots. You could ask me questions about how I would play certain situations. You could ask me questions about the rules. You could talk to some of my opponents. If the evidence you gathered matched the criteria you had for a competent pool player, then you would make the decision that I was competent. How do we conduct that pool player assessment again and again with many potential players, anytime, anywhere, with a wide range of other assessors, consistently? We need to design a robust and quality assessment tool. An assessment tool is everything that an assessor will require to ensure that they can collect quality evidence time after time with many potential candidates. For the candidate, the assessment tool ensures that they understand exactly what is required of them. Okay, so how do we put an assessment tool together? Use this methodical series of steps and you won't have any problems. Define the competency to be examined. We've already discussed this, but essentially you need to find the unit of competency, the elements, or the criteria that you are going to assess in this training assessment. Select the types, forms and methods of assessment collection and complete an assessment matrix. The aim here is to ensure that you find the most valid, reliable, flexible and fair method of collecting evidence for each element and for each criteria within that element. Best quality essentially means that you should have at least 2 methods for each criteria. Outline all the resources and requirements. Make a list of them. Make sure that you've covered everything that this assessment needs to be run effectively and efficiently. Write the workplace assessment tool complete with instructions for the assessor and the candidate who will be assessed. This is the most time-consuming aspect of the process, basically because it takes quite a while to write out very clear instructions that ensure the assessor knows exactly what's required and also that the candidate knows what's required. Trial and validate the draft assessment tool. Try it out with some potential candidates. Try it out with a group of assessors. Validate using a proper validation form and ensure that you get as much feedback as you can on that draft assessment tool. The last stage is where essentially you modify the assessment tool if required, and normally it is required. There are little things that you missed out, things that you haven't covered. The aim of the exercise is to design the best assessment tool that you can. Despite your best efforts, there will most likely be some flaws due to a range of reasons. That is why we need to constantly review and validate so that we can make incremental improvements over time to improve our assessment tool and assessment processes. That's it. Designing excellent quality assessment is just as time-consuming and as challenging as designing a good training program or a training session. With practice, you do get more effective and efficient at the process. Validation is the backup process which ensures that you constantly check and improve your assessment tools and processes. Check out the video on this at all the usual locations.